As somebody who has spent an absurd amount of time researching about solutions for scaling backend, this is something I have neither seen used a lot, nor I have seen people recommend it a lot. So that is why I wanted to create this video in order to give you something to think about, to ponder about on how you can scale a very simple backend very easily. This is the exact thing that we also use in our own company in order to serve thousands of requests per second. That translates to hundreds of millions of requests, billion requests per month. And this is so simple that by the end of this video, you would actually think about that what's going on here. All right, so let's cover it. What I want to talk about is how do you take a backend? It could be written in anything. It could be Node.js, it could be Python, it could be any technology. And without doing a lot of changes, with keeping minimal changes, how can you scale it in a cost efficient way? That is how we figured it out, right? So see, when I talk about backend, I'm also assuming your database over here, right? So you will have your database over here. We can talk about how do we scale this part later. But all of us have heard about load balancers, right? If you look at internet online, and if you search for, load balancers and stuff, you will see that generally we come across AWS or even, Cloudflare. If I look at Cloudflare, for example, you will see that Cloudflare has a dedicated load balancing as a feature, intelligent routing, so on and so forth. But what if I tell you that there is a set of product and services that you can use as a load balancer? It's not meant to be used as a load balancer, but you can still do that. And the service that I'm talking about is Cloudflare's Workers. So Cloudflare Worker is generally not considered as a load balancer, right? And I want to just be upfront over here is that you can use Cloudflare Worker as one of the services, but there are some other services which are similar to this. For example, there is Bunny Edge scripting as well, which is very, very similar to how Cloudflare Workers work. But I'm going to stick with Workers over here because that is what we use and I have like a decent amount of idea with this. But the core idea with a worker is that it has a lot of limitations, right? So first of all, it has a limitation of, bundle size. It has a limitation of, CPU time. It has a limitation of, wall time, a lot of these things, right? But one limitation that it does not have is the number of requests that it can handle. So effectively, this is a piece of software that is built in such a way with Cloudflare is that it can handle any number of requests, right? And when I say any number of requests, that could be 100 requests per second, that could be 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, a million requests per second. This is a line of defense that will not go down. And this is your first line of defense as well. If you put your backend directly over here, you are actually risking the chance of your backend going down because of whatever reason, right? But if you put a worker in front of it first, this is a service which is guaranteed by Cloudflare that it will not go down because it's very, very scalable. That's number one. But this itself is not enough for it to be considered as a load balancing service, because if you look at Cloudflare Workers, you will see Cloudflare Workers say itself that it is deploying the serverless code that you provided instantly across the globe. While in theory, this is a great feature, but in latency wise, you do not want this. The reason for that is assume that your backend is here, right? In this region on Earth. If your user is here in this region of Earth or, far away, you don't want the worker to be invoked here because it will make a lot of high latency calls to your actual original backend, right? You don't want to do this. You want the worker itself to be here as well. So if your original backend is here, you want the worker to be nearby as well. It does not help us in this case that your worker over here is here and the user is connecting to this, and then the worker has to connect with your actual backend, traversing the internet once again. So latency wise, this is actually a drawback for us that Cloudflare Workers deploy the code globally instead of just around your backend where your backend is, right? And this in fact is a huge problem. I'm telling this because I have tested this with Cloudflare Workers and the latency becomes a problem. But that is where I discovered that Workers introduced a smart placement mode. And when you turn on the smart placement mode, what Cloudflare will do is that it will automatically place your worker closest to the upstream with the most requests. So this is one thing. Second thing is that you can obviously specify a region as well. If you are locking your backend to a specific AWS GCP region, you can specify that region and Cloudflare will try to keep the worker around that. So if you specify region, it will have explicit cloud region to run your worker closest to. For most use cases, I have seen that smart is good enough, but if you want to harden or, just hard lock your region itself, you can do the region part as well. But what this effectively means is that worker can now sit with your backend almost very close to your backend, even if there are multiple requests coming in from, a lot of places and a lot of people, right? Which basically reduces the latency between your actual worker to your actual backend within like 1 to 2 milliseconds, right? So it will effectively take only like a few milliseconds, 1 to 2 milliseconds for your worker to reach your backend. So that way we have solved for latency, right? So this load balancer is not gonna be super expensive for your backend to be installed. Worst case, you are adding 2 milliseconds of latency, which is nothing when you compare it to the grand scheme of the whole network latency of your API coming and going to the user, right? Alright, now we come to the next part, which is like, how do we make use of this worker in order to scale it? Now I'm going to tell you how do we do that, and then you can take away ideas from it. Now the way we do it is as follows. So we have a worker, which is a dedicated a proxy or, a load balancer sort of worker, right? This worker is also in smart mode, smart positioning mode. So it is very close to the backend. And by the way, the smart mode works by actually observing your worker and seeing that it's making a request to a specific resource, like an outbound request, and where the request has lowest amount of latency, it will automatically start placing your worker there, right? Now, this worker over here has a hard-coded list of all the available backend routes, right? So let's say that your first route, let's say your backend server is this, right? And you have one Node.js process or whatever Python process running on port 3333. Then let's say your second backend route is this, right? And then you have this as a second Python request, and then third Python process, and fourth and fifth and so on, right? So imagine that this is like a 4-core or an 8-core machine or whatever. And instead of, just running something which can utilize multi-core, for example, Golang or, Elixir or whatever that you're using a language or runtime like Node.js or Python, which can't efficiently or, optimize for multiple cores. So instead of that, you run all the processes separately on that machine. And then you can also have, backup machines, right? So let's say you have another machine which is running, right? So you have, for example, these list of IP addresses over here, right? So this list of IP addresses is hard coded in the worker itself. And the worker, whenever an incoming request comes into play, what it does is that it picks a random IP plus port combination out of this whole list, and it just proxies that request there, right? Now, the way this works, the way math works is that if you have a lot of requests coming in, and if you have like a sizable list size, mathematically, if you just keep on doing the proxy, you will see that on a large enough timeline, all the requests sort of evenly distribute across all the IP address plus port ranges, right? So if you have, for example, let's say 100 RPS coming in, and you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So effectively, you are not serving more than 100 by 6 requests per process, which is just about 16 requests per second, right? Which is super manageable for anyone, any single process, right? Again, like if we make this 1,000 or even 10,000 requests per second, which sounds like a huge number, and it is, like 10,000 requests per second is a huge number. But if you look at this process list, and let's say this process list is increased from 6 to 20, let's say you have 20 IP addresses here, and if you make this 10,000, then over here, 500 requests per second does not look that bad. I mean, I don't know really about Python, but Node.js can easily handle something like this, which is not a huge thing for it. And of course, the beauty about this is that you always have this in your control, right? You can always horizontally scale your service, so you can keep on adding more and more backends, while the worker over here has a fixed address because it's, managed by Cloudflare or whatever, and all the incoming requests, all the 10,000 requests per second are hitting this, and the worker over here is effectively just distributing the load evenly, even though it's doing randomly. But mathematically, we know that on large enough timeline and retries and whatever, it will automatically start distributing it evenly. If you look at the data after 1 day, 2 day, 3 day, and at 10,000 requests per second. So this becomes completely stateless, right? The only thing this has to do is just figure out a random number and redirect the request there. But now you can start to make this smarter, right? Because this is a programmable piece. You can also have timeouts. So for example, it can route a request to a specific IP, but let's say that this IP is not responding, this IP and port is not responding for some reason, whatever, like something is going wrong, or it responds in a bad way, like a 500 error or something, which your backend will never send, right? I also cover that in one of the videos. That is where it becomes interesting for, something like this, where if the request code or response code is 500, it knows that it's not possible, so it will try some other combination, right? And it can keep on trying up to 3 times before it actually sends back, that something is wrong with the backend. So it's not only making it possible for you to handle an extreme extremely large amount of requests, but it's also making it possible to have a very high availability of the service. So in this case, for example, let's say even if I go ahead and delete this full virtual machine completely, yes, it would affect the requests which are in transit. I mean, I could probably argue that if you have the retry mechanism, it might not even reflect, affect the request in transit as well, right? Because your worker will just retry it because it's not hearing back from the machine. But anyway, if you have that list, you would see that if the server is gone, worker will try that IP address. It'll see that it's not responding and it'll just, go ahead and try something else. Now, of course, you need an external or different service that updates this list, right? So you can have like a cron or something that is constantly monitoring all the IP address, let's say once every minute or once every 5 minutes in this list. And if it sees like something is unhealthy or something requires changing, it'll just do its own work. It'll just redeploy this worker, and redeploying this worker is also like, it's not gonna cause any downtime, right? So this is an extremely smart way to handle any amount of workload, right? And this is actually very, very cheap also. Look at this. Cloudflare Worker effectively has a 30 cent per million calls as a pricing, right? And the work that we are doing, the proxy thing that we are doing, I can tell you from my own data, because we use this exactly, it takes less than 1 millisecond on average for every single request. This is 1 millisecond of CPU time, right? Not wall time. And that is what Cloudflare builds you. So that's again 2 cents per additional million CPU milliseconds, right? So effectively you can assume that this is 32 cents per additional million calls in a way, right? Inclusive of, the CPU time and all of that, right? So this is coming out to be roughly about 32 cents per million requests. And if you translate it to, let's say, a billion requests that you're doing in a month, that's only $320 for 1 billion requests proxied through a load balancer, which also can act as a health check provider and dynamically route requests. On the other hand, if you try to look at load balancing as a service, which is like one of the services that Cloudflare provides, let's say if we are doing 20 endpoints and let's say we are doing, 60 seconds, checks from one region is fine, you're going to see that we are already at $95 bill over here for the 20 endpoints thing. And you see that after the first 500,000 queries, it's basically 50 cents per 500,000 queries requests, right? Which is going to be at $1 for a million requests. And we were at 32 cents per million over here. So it's effectively at least 3 times cheaper, if not more. Now I'm doing like crude math. It's rough math, but it'll probably turn out to be the same. And I just asked Claude to run through numbers for, AWS ELB for a billion requests per month. And as you can see, because AWS is like notoriously difficult to work with because of the bandwidth cost involved as well, I just asked, Claude to create some estimates. It's going to say just the ELB is at least $100 per month. And then data transfer, depending on, what is the payload size and whatever, it can go up to $3,000 to $4,000 as well. So again, like clearly more expensive from Cloudflare Workers, because Cloudflare Workers don't have bandwidth cost associated with them, right? So yeah, this is a very, very interesting setup. I know like one drawback of this that is there is that this communication from the worker to the backend actually involves internet, right? So this would be routed through internet. So it will add a few milliseconds of latency, but this can be very, very minimal if you just place your worker very close to your backend, and then your backend can just talk to database like usual, right? And of course, in order to scale this, you need like, if you're using, for example, Postgres, so you need like a pooler or something over here so that these number of backends that you're increasing, they're able to effectively talk to the database. So that's all for this video. Hopefully you liked it. If you did, make sure you leave a like and subscribe to the channel. And I'm going to see you in the next video very soon. If you're still watching, make sure you leave a comment, "I watched till the end" below to tell me that you were still here, and let me know what do you think about the video.